Welcome to Seize Your Mind, the podcast about soccer, mental toughness, and life. I'm your host, Brandon Stone. Today we have Freddy Juarez with us. He is the head coach for Real Salt Lake. He, before that, was the assistant coach for them, and he also played professionally for a couple teams. Freddy, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Brandon? Thanks for having me on this show.
Good. Thank you for being here. Looks like you're having a nice, relaxing day at the beach.
I tend to put that one on so people think I'm not stressed.
Oh, nice. It works. You don't look stressed one bit. So I just wanted to figure out how you got to where you are now. Tell me the story of, playing as a kid, teenager.
Yeah, sure. Parents are from Mexico. They might. From my dad from Milwaukee, Chihuahua, which is the northern part, closer to in Chihuahua, it's a northern state in Mexico. And my mom's from León, Guanajuato, which is a little bit more central southern. And they moved into the States. They worked the fields, so they came and picked crops and that type of stuff. And we moved into El Paso, Texas, then eventually moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I was raised pretty much my whole life. Father, when it came to sports, was a big-time fan of baseball and played a lot growing up in his youth and mid-teen ages, and played at a competitive select teams and things like of that nature, not pro of any sort, but really loved the sport. So we were that was our first sport that, growing up, that's what we would do with Pops. He'd hit the ball to us and we, go do the, pick it up and throw it back to him type of stuff. But we kind of felt.
Boy?
Sorry?
You were the ball boy?
Yeah, I didn't find it much fun. He did the hitting and we just went and chased the ball. Didn't like it very much. So we never really picked it up, but it just happens to be where the first home we lived when we got to the States was in across an elementary school. And my older brothers, I have two older brothers, 5 and 4 years older than me. I'd tag along and we'd go to the playground. And one day, probably nowadays it sounds strange, but there was a gentleman and his son riding around. And I guess he saw us, and my two brothers looked the age of his son, and he asked if they would be interested in playing soccer. And my brothers were like, yeah, like we've never played it. We didn't know what it was. Even though we're from Mexico, or my parents were, we didn't think about sports other than baseball. So, the guy asked where we lived. My brothers pointed out the home. They went and talked to my dad, and my dad ended up taking my brothers to practice a few days later, and that's where it just caught on. And from there, I tag along. And
you were about how old when that?
Sorry?
You were about how old then?
I'm at that time I was 4 years old. Yeah, my brothers were 9 and 10. So you still tagged along for a few years. They jumped from a couple teams to teams, and finally they got to a team that the coach actually ended up. They got tired of me going over there and shagging balls for them. That there was a team that was a year older than me that trained on the same facility, and coach walked me over there and introduced me to the coach and asked me if I wanted to train with them, and ended up got in a line and did an exercise with them and fell in love with the game from that point on. That was about 8 years old. So about 4 years later, just loved it. So then that ended up happening, and just continued to play in the Las Cruces area. Had some very influential people, Leo and Linda Lara, who at that time it was called the New Mexico Strikers. They brought us up, kids from all over different backgrounds, and we had a competitive team, and that's where I got into the ODPs and all that type of stuff, and continued to play, traveling stuff. Didn't go and play college. Right after high school, there was, a junior college opportunity. I spoke to Simon Tobin, who at the time was the head coach at Cal State Bakersfield, which is Division II at the time. He was scouting me, but I didn't have the ACT to go. So he asked me to go to a junior college in Irvine, and I chose I didn't want to go. So I stayed and entered some classes, registered for some classes at New Mexico State University. And they have a whatever you want to call it, club team. So
Yeah.
that, you go take 1 or 2 classes and you can play on that team. And they travel around, and just the coach that was coaching actually played, Rafael Zuniga played in Mexico, played at Pumas, ended up, I think, playing in Juarez, Ciudad Juarez with the Cobras, which was a Division I team a while back in the 80s, and I think early 90s. And he knew the head coach. They were teammates, who was coaching the USL team at the time, A-League team, El Paso Patriots. And he told me he got a scrimmage, and he told me the coach, he talked to the coach and told him, this is a player you should look at. And after the game, they invited me to a preseason. And from there, at 19 years old, this was 1998, maybe 97, late 97. No, 98, sorry. And they saw me, and that was it. That's how I got my time to first professional contract. Played there for 6 years.
What position did you start?
Started as believe it or not, a center back. Out of fault, it was a back line of 5. I was one of the center backs. Evolved to a wing back, a right wing back. And then 2 years later, I went back to my natural position in the middle of the field. I was traditionally, when you're growing up, you're an attacking player. But what I ended up doing for the rest of my time was a holding mid, number 6. Yeah. Played 6 years with El Paso, and then they folded. They went down to PDL, and I got a call from Buzz Lagos, who was the head coach of Minnesota Thunder. He called me, took the opportunity, and I went there for 4 years, and that wrapped up a 10-year career in a second division status in the U.S. I played a year in indoor, didn't really like it with Wichita Wings. Did a couple.
Futsal, right?
I did a couple camps in futsal. Wasn't my thing either. I just did it because there was nothing to do once the season ended on the outdoor, and did a couple tryouts in MLS. But after that, during this whole time, I was always coaching, running camps or coaching back home. But after I finished, I really got a hold of it and started coaching teams and coaching competitive teams. And I got seen, and that's how I got into RSL.
Well, before we get into the coaching career, I want you to tell me your favorite memory. It's a movie in your mind. Your favorite memory from playing as a player.
As a pro player, or
either?
Yeah, you gotta, for sure. Your first professional game that you ever played, and for mine was first game was San Francisco Seals back in the day. I think it was in San Francisco. Yep. And then I think CJ Brown, if you've heard of him, I think he played there. A couple guys got started there. And then I think it was a road trip, which was, oh my gosh, Jaguars, and I forgot the name of the city there in Northern California, but it's a farm town. And that's for sure memorable because it was my first professional league professional game. And then I had some very good memories down in Minnesota. We made the playoffs, I think 3 times, but we made a good run at the Open Cup 2 years where we knocked out 2 teams each year of MLS teams, which was for us was always, it is your lower cup team, and you enter those cup games, you want to knock down the MLS teams. And those, I know we knocked out LA Galaxy, we knocked out ironically Real Salt Lake. We knocked out Kansas City one year. So we took the very good San Jose Earthquakes. They had De Rosario, they had Landon Donovan. Those guys, we took them into PKs. They beat us in penalty kicks. So it was 2 good years of Open Cup runs that I'll remember forever. Did
you take one of those penalty kicks?
I didn't. I had already been subbed in overtime. So, but it was a fun game. I was kind of supposed to kind of keep an eye on Landon Donovan, and the one time he gets loose, he scores. But so they took us into overtime with that.
Do you have a favorite goal you scored?
Yeah, some teammates, they said I didn't score very often, but I had 2 very memorable goals where they're like, man, you don't score, but when you score golazos. And one was against Atlanta Silverbacks. One time, ball outside the box, and another one was
like a volley.
Sorry?
It's like a volley?
Yeah, no, across the ground, and I just hit it one time, and it went upper V. I don't know what happened, but it went off my foot like it's never has, and it went right upper V. And It was, I thought, a very good goal, probably my best goal ever. And then another one that Buzz Lagos, even every time I see him, his son is Manny Lagos, who's at Minnesota United. I saw him when we went to go play last season, and he always, every time we run into each other, he introduces me as the guy that scored saved the season for Minnesota, because we knock out Boulder, Colorado Rapids, which was their PDL team. It's a last-minute goal that I have, and that advances us in the Open Cup. And as you know, lower division teams, if you can make it to advance and play in MLS teams, that's 6,000-7,000 fans, and that's a lot of money. And every time I run into him, he's like, "You saved our season for the next year." That's why we had a team the next year, because of that money we brought in. So it was a memorable goal.
That's cool. That's cool. Had you always had an eye on coaching later? Like, did you have that in the back of your mind?
Yes. As soon as I probably hit about 18 years, well, I was already helping my brother coach around 17. And from there on, I was always coaching. I loved it. I loved playing, but I was always paying attention, and I was always signing up for the camps, because that's how you got extra money. But when I came home during the summer, as you know, the seasons are only 6-7 months long, I was coaching, and I was taking teams to Dallas Cup, Nomads, all over the country to do these competitive tournaments. So I loved it. I had a thing for getting, and you didn't have very good internet in those days, but I'd subscribe to like World Class Coaching. I'd order those Ajax coaching videos, and I'd watch them. And that's the stuff I'd go apply to the teams that I was coaching, along with the experience that I was gaining as a player. I try to apply it to players. So it was, I knew I was going to coach. I didn't have it in my mind like I was going to be a pro coach. I didn't have that vision. I just wanted to be a very good coach competitively for the city that I was living in. It's a very small town, but we always produced some decent players at a young age. For me, it was awesome going and competing against California teams from all over the country, and competing and winning in some cases, coming from a town of 70,000 and a league of maybe the whole league, when you registered every single player, was maybe 2,500. So if we had a team at U18, it was a team that you carried through, and you had to develop from 7, like they stayed together for years. I had a few of those teams.
Yeah.
And you'd sprinkle in 1 or 2 players here and there that you were lucky enough to find, or they liked your team and they travel from another city. But that's, for me, it was always developing players, because we couldn't select players. So every year our team and players had to get better, and I fell in love with that you saw progress in helping someone get better.
That's cool. That's cool. How did you get the job as the assistant coach at RSL?
Yeah, no, first for me, along with the coaching that I was doing, that you're just, going and with my New Mexico United teams, New Mexico Striker teams, I got seen with a team. I didn't get seen, but U.S. national team scouts, Greg Vanny and Mike Munoz, who are now at Toronto, were scouting for U.S. soccer at a tournament in Phoenix, and my team was playing in that tournament, and they came to watch a couple of the players I was coaching. They were U15s. But at the same time, Greg Vanny, he's very good friends with Robin Frazier, who at that time was assistant coach to Jason Christ at Real Salt Lake. In Casa Grande, Arizona, an hour south of Phoenix, there's this facility, Grande Sports World. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's an oasis, really. There's a golf course, there's some dorms and a hotel, and then there was some city and a facility, some fields and a facility of a weight room and locker rooms there. Greg Vanny saw it because he went to go see it for Seattle Sounders. They had been approached to see if they'd want to go do preseason there. So he went to go see it for Siggy Schmidt. He sees the place, and because of him being such good friends with Robin, he calls Robin, and he's like, "Robin, there's this facility over here. Would you guys be interested in doing a residential academy here?" So this is all taking place. So then back to when they're scouting my players, they liked a few of my players while they're doing, dual things, U.S. national team, and trying to start an academy there. They call me and they tell me, we liked a few of your players, a couple for the national team, but we saw a few others that we'd like to invite to come and try out. We're trying to put together a team that we can show U.S. soccer, that we can put a competitive enough team to participate in the U.S. Development Academy League. And so that's what I started doing. I started going every once a month, taking a load of kids over there, and they're trying out, and they're having kids from that age was the 95s was the youngest, and 93s. So it was a U16 team and a U19 team. And during that process, probably took about 2 months, they asked me if I wanted to be part of their coaching staff. And I jumped to it. I knew I continued to coach in my city, but after the kids reach 17, it gets too expensive for them. And, you really can't do much for them unless you want to travel all over the country. But the reality is there was 2 or 3 players on that team that were good enough to the next level. And so what I did was those kids that got picked up by Greg and them, I just said, you know what, I'm gonna go and take the best players from here. And we did that. And so during that process, Greg Banny leaves. I stay there with Mike Munoz. Greg Banny left to be assistant coach in the middle of that process with Robin Frazier at Chivas USA. Mike Munoz stays. We finish the year, and we get third in nationals with one of the groups. They bring in another coaching director the next year, Martin Vasquez, who I think you've heard of, coached at Bayern Munich with Klinsmann, coach of the national team, was here for a long time. We worked together at the academy for 4.5 years. Very good friends there that we had, Tony Bruce, Mike Kraus, good group of coaches that we had there. And we developed some good players in that process. So during that whole time, Jason Kreis, Greg, Garth Lagerway, Jeff Cassar, they all paid attention to me. There was good collaboration. And when the Monarchs started in 2015, they wanted to bring a USL team, a second team. They approached me to see if I wanted to be the head coach of that inaugural team. So, Martin Vasquez, who I have a lot of respect for, was a mentor of mine down at the academy. I told Garth, I think it would be best for you to approach Martin. This guy's coached at the highest level. And he's like, okay, if that's what you want. And they approached Martin, and Martin said, no, I'm happy here, but Freddy's ready. He's ready to go. And I approached Martin. I was like, I don't want you to, feel that someone was going behind your back. He's like, no, Freddy, you're ready to go. You need the next level. So I did that. I came here for 2 years, ran the Monarchs for 2 years. And during that time, had very good collaboration with Jeff Cassar. In the third year, he approached me and asked me if I wanted to be his assistant. And I think, I felt like the Monarchs was great. It was very good. It's a tough gig to be the second team head coach when you in an MLS team, because it was new, but you have to deal with the academy, you have to deal with first team, you have to deal with your guys. A lot of moving parts in that
Sending
gig.
people back and forth.
Sending people back and forth, pissing off the guys that work with you all week, and then other guys from the first team come. Like, there's a lot of things, and I get it 100%. But I felt I was ready to go and help Jeff, and we had a very good relationship even when he was the assistant to Jason down at the he would contact me when we'd send players down from Arizona up here for reserve games, all that. So it was a good collaboration, and yeah, I took it. I didn't even think twice. And unfortunately, we had a slow start, and he gets let go. And they bring Mike Petke in. Mike Petke comes in, and he has an opportunity to watch us and see how we are and how he can work with us, but also the opportunity of bringing staff of his own if he needs to. And he ended up keeping me and a couple of the other staff members, and that's how we worked. So we worked for 2.5 years with Mike Petke, who I respect a lot. Again, another head coach that I loved, because they allowed me to, where some places, a lot of head coaches want their hands in everything, and they don't let you do a whole lot. And with Mike and Jeff, with Martin down at the academy, there was a lot of, what do you think? What do you think? And so it allowed me to grow. So I was more than happy of being an assistant. I was never a guy who has to be the head coach. As long as I'm in an environment where I can learn and I can have input and help. And unfortunately, some bad thing happened. Something happened, and they kept me as an inaugural interim coach. And I finished off last year's half of the season as an interim coach, and they offered me the job at the end of the year. So here I am now in a pandemic. Had two games, and then we're in this situation. So not the easiest of start, but very excited to see what I can do and the staff can do with the team.
Yeah, hopefully things will pick back up soon.
Hope I didn't bore you with that story.
No, I was following along. Seems like you're very good at networking, and it's about who you know and not always what you know.
I wouldn't say networking, because I never kept in touch with these people. So it just turns out I was never looking for a gig. It was always, someone liking what I did, and then they would approach me. Like the Mike Munoz, so I didn't, and Greg Manny, I didn't network. They came and scouted players. They contacted me, and I was like, yeah, I'll take players over. For me, I'll move players on. I'm not the coach that's going to keep players back. Edgar Castillo was a coach that I helped in his development for many years, and when his parents came to us and said, at 17 years old, we want to take him to Mexico, there was multiple opportunities before that, and it was always like, if it's not better than what he has, don't. And when they came with this one, it was like, it sounds legit. They're going to put him on the U17 team, the first team. He's going to play. Take him. He ends up going to Mexico and playing for 10-plus years, winning championships, playing for Mexico with Hugo Sanchez and playing with Klinsmann with the U.S. national team. Like, I think people always saw the work I did. The Jeff Cassar, they'd come down for preseason, Jason Christ, and they'd ask us to help, and they liked what I did. They liked things that I did, and same with Mike. They thought they liked the ideas and the tactical knowledge, but I never once pushed to get the job. My dad always told me, and let the people speak. You never act like you're good or try to flaunt that you're good or make a big deal. The people will recognize if you're good. And I actually read that, and Ancelotti said the other day, it was Benitez. Let your work speak for itself. So if you ask anyone that knows me, they would say, oh, Freddy rarely talks to people. And that's not my personality, and go out there and mingle and give my card out. That's not me. And what I always hope is that my work will speak for itself, and opportunities will arise because what people have seen when they watch me at work.
Your work does your networking for you, so you don't have to.
Yeah, I hope that's the case, and I hope that continues to happen.
Pretty cool. What do you think is your biggest strength as a coach?
Yeah, that's tough. Again, I'm really under the principles that other people dictate that. I think, honesty and work ethic and the respect that I give people is my biggest strength. That's me saying that. But I don't know. I would hope that if you asked people that were close to me and knew me, they would those same words would come out of their mouth. It's hard for me to sit here and tell you what my strengths are. I think, we all fancy ourselves being good at something, but the reality is, if you ask people around them, maybe that's not your strength. But the one thing I try to do is be honest and work hard, because I think that those are things you can control.
Very true. Very true. There's a lot of uncontrollables out there.
Yeah.
Those are definitely two things you can't control. It's good to keep in mind. Was there any adversity you faced growing up or playing as a professional that you were able to turn into something positive?
Adversity. Yeah. We're the typical background of, poor Hispanic kids, not just Hispanic, just poor from different parts of cultures and races. And we had coaches who cared about us and put us in, took us to travel in a van, a 15-passenger van. Like, parents didn't have money. So the way my parents would repay the coach was, well, I'm going to send a dozen of burritos for you guys, so you don't have to spend money on the kids eating. And like, that was always my adversity, is there was never any, and the groups I played with, never financial backing, but you had very good people that just wanted to help. And so if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have made it. I would have been working out in the world, but it wouldn't have been through soccer, but it was it was good people that decided to do that extra. And so when I became a coach, I was doing the same thing. I was picking up 4 or 5 kids in my car and driving into practice. When I originally got to the academy, I lived in the dorm my whole time there for 4.5 years with the kids. And
did you really?
Yeah. And if you ask some of the guys that made it pro, Lalo Fernandez, who's at Tigres right now, he was one of our signings for RSL before he went to Tigres. Carlos Salcedo, Fanny Cavita, who we signed as well. But like, I get 5 seniors. 5 of the seniors had to go to a different school. And, when you're a senior, you go maybe half day. And I load up 5 kids and drive them to school every day. Like, it was something that it was a burden if you made it be a burden. But I always reminded myself that's where I'm at, because someone would go pick me up. And then after a long day of them working all day, pick me up for practice and then take me home after practice, and I can imagine they'd be getting home at 9, But as a kid, you don't think about that. But as I got older, I realized when I'm doing it, I'm like, man, these people used to pick me up for years.
Yeah.
For years, just so they can have a good team and help these kids around that otherwise wouldn't have played sports because their parents had to work all day. And so it was always something that I figured I have to do if I could ever do. And that's what I did with my teams. Do the car washes, go stand outside of Sam's Club and sell tickets with them so they can go to a good tournament. But I knew if I didn't take them, they were going to go on their own, and their parents were going to take them, not because their parents didn't care, but their parents worked all day, every day of the week, So for me, that was the biggest adversity. It wasn't just playing soccer. It's what we could do so we could compete and travel, and that was all that type of stuff, the hard work.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely paying it forward.
I love that movie, and that would hopefully be something that I think I don't think of it that way, but I think that's the best way of doing it. It's if someone helped you, you got to go and reach and help some other people.
It's good. It's a good philosophy to live by. As a coach, I see you got the nice relaxing background there. Let's talk about focus and concentration.
Yeah.
What do you do to help your players be more focused and on the field if they're having trouble with it?
Yeah. This is a tough one. I love, when you said you had the mental strength and all that, that's, I'm by no means am I even a professional or an expert at it or nothing, but I try to kind of go off experience. I think, when I go back to some of my principles of honesty and respect, I think a big part of players is they already have a lot of pressures of performing, pressures of trying to keep contracts because they need to make money for their parents, their kids, their wives. They have all that pressure along with now the pressure from the coach of we got to win, we got to do this and that. So I think one of my biggest things when I go to the respect and honesty stuff is I try to have conversations with players where I try to ease that from them. I'm not a screamer and running crazy and on the sideline going nuts. I hope that I get to, when the players see my demeanor, that it goes, if they feed off of it, that they know they're not in ever panic mode, that they can ease and do what they love doing. I preach that a lot. We're every time we're at the office and we're going to head outside to go start setting up. One of the last things I always say is, hey, let's go do what we were born to do. And I try to give those little things. When you go to the tactical and all that stuff, I do a lot of preparation with the staff and myself. It's never just me. The staff and myself do a lot of preparation tactically with our principles of play, all that, and try to make them as easy as possible for the players to understand. We then again try to deliver to them on a daily with video and what we're going to do at training to try to get all this out to relieve stress from them. So when they go out to the training field, as soon as they step out of our facility onto the field, they know, hopefully they have an understanding of what we're going to do. There's not second guessing. There's not a stresses of, oh man, what are we doing? Oh, we're doing this. They know this is what we're doing today. We just talked about it. This is our focus. So that I think helps a little bit. We have a very relaxed environment. I'm not there hovering over the guys and as much as I want them to be 100% dedicated and all that, that's what I hope they do. But I hope they do it with seeing what I do every day and me not having to preach it, but they see me doing it. So then they hopefully that the actions speak louder than words for myself and the staff, and they know it that way. But I'm not in their grill. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Things get out of their hand, but of course, if someone's being late over and over and over and over, and it's affecting his performance and the team, then we'll have a conversation. And the conversation always is the same type of tone that I'm having with you right now. How do we get better? Excuse me. How do we move on from this? But it's trying to relieve all the outside world stuff and not adding any more stress for myself. They're stressed enough, and they, I think, have a platform where they can speak. Players can speak. Their ideas are valid. If we need to talk about tactics, I present it to them, and they feel confident. I hope they feel confident that they can question that. And then we can go over it and say, and I can explain why. And if they have a better idea, we'll apply it. That's not a problem. If it's our academy coach that saw a game and he brings up a point and says, maybe you could have done this and it actually is better, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to give him the credit. It's not about me. I need the team to succeed. And wherever the best idea comes from and it helps us go in the right direction, I'm all about that. It has nothing to do with me. So I think that's the environment we try to help put the team in. So the mental part of it is they already have so much to do with it. They don't feel overwhelmed with all the other side of it. And I think that helps with performance. And I hope it does.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me a little bit more about the culture there.
Yeah, again, it's a lot of open door. It's a lot of dialogue. It's a lot of teaching. We do a lot of video. Tomorrow, for example, we'll have a Zoom call where we're doing we go over our principles of play during this time. You're not doing a whole lot of team training. It's individual stuff. It's fitness. So we can't lose the tactical aspect that we when I took over the team that we implemented in preseason. And then because of what happened right now in the situation we're in, what you can do is run to stay fit and some individual training sessions, and it leaves a lot of tactics out. So it's all about the tactics, and that's the part that we're really trying to implement in the teaching and keeping the guys sharp here. So when we go, as soon as the league says we're allowed to get out there and small group training and team training, that they feel like maybe they weren't doing it physically, but they feel it's in the head that they understand what we're already doing.
You said run and individual trainings were two things. You left out FIFA.
Yeah, 100% the players are playing FIFA. I know that for a fact. But that's a good game. I love playing. I have the new FIFA here. Every once in a while, I'll pull it out and play. But yeah, you got to play some FIFA. You got to get the FIFA in.
Yeah, it's the closest thing I get nowadays to actually playing.
Keep playing.
Yeah, it's great. Do the guys do like little tournaments in between themselves, or?
There's a handful of guys that are very into it for sure. Even in some of our traveling, you'll see one of the systems, either the PlayStation or the Xbox, traveling with the players. So I definitely know there's a handful of guys that are very, very competitive at it. So and that doesn't bother me. I think it's good. It's a different way. We're in new livings now, and technology is definitely a big part of our bringing up and what stimulates our brain and learning. So for me, there's a very good way. I'm not great at the FIFA. Like, I'm the type that gets on it and I just want to quick play and don't change formations and don't that. Can we play right away, please?
Right.
Play. But
switching people. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, and sometimes I play someone that has to change formations and strategies and all that, and you start really looking at like, hey man, some of this stuff makes sense, So I think there's still a way of learning from it if you really look in depth into it.
That's cool. Anything you would do as a player to help you get in the zone?
I'm a very relaxed demeanor, first of all. So it was, for me, like game day, and even game day as a player back in the day when I played, and game day as a coach, it's got to be really relaxed, nothing ever rushed. Wake up at a time when I finally wake up, not because the alarm tells me to wake up. Watch some soccer, go over the stuff. When I was a player, I had to take a nap. At midday, probably after lunch. It just relaxed me even more, and I felt like if I did that, I wasn't going to get that siesta time during the game. I'd be sharper. And as a coach, it's still very similar. I have to take a lie down sometime during a siesta, sometime during, whether that's 30 minutes, an hour, I have to get that in. And then I have to go over the notes that we're going to go and talk to the players about in our last meeting at the stadium. It's just something that I got to have here. So if I lose track of something, I can remember, it's in my head. I don't necessarily have to look at the PowerPoint, but that's a ritual that I have to go over multiple times a day before I present to the guys. That lets me relax a little bit and keeps me thinking about the game.
Another one of those things that you do have control over.
Yeah. As long as you did the work before and did the presentation. Then
Right. Yeah. What about superstitions? Did you have any superstitions as a player?
Oh yeah, we always, player and as a coach, as soon as we win a game, it's like, what did we eat last time? What did we do this? The staff right now is very, we did this. Don't change that. What did we have for the meals for the guys? Don't change that. Me, if I said I went and got coffee at this time, I'll go get it at that time again. So, and as a player, it's very similar. I wore these shoes. I got to stick with those shoes till we lose, or very, very similar as now. If I took a walk the day of the game as a player at 11, I was doing it again the next game. I think you just see that with every player. Maybe I wasn't extreme, but I did have a routine if it was winning ways.
If it was working.
If it was working, yep.
Cool. They say superstitions and routines like that, they just put you in the mindset of winning the game. They don't necessarily work, but they work for your mind.
Yeah, and I think it's again, like you said, I think I go back to them how players are just stressed, and you have to perform, and they work themselves up, and outside influences get them worked up too. That you need something that just keeps you in line, and a routine of sort that doesn't can allow you to block everything else off, and it keeps your sight on the goal. It's again, anything that you can do to relax the mind for me is critical.
What do you do to keep trainings more fun?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's you always got to remember and think back again that the players are players, and we are playing a game, and we fell in love with it, with the ball and chasing the ball and playing. I don't think we fell in love with it from the first day that you showed up to practice and you did an exercise, a tactical exercise. I think you fell in love because you played with it in the playground. You just chased the ball and competed against somebody. So I gotta remember that, because sometimes as a coach, you put pressures on yourself, and you get judged on a weekly basis by 15, 20,000 fans, and so as coaches, you're like, shoot, I gotta prepare my team as much as possible, and you get into this video and tactics and individual meetings and designing sessions that are based off your principles, and then you forget that, can we just give them a 7v7 tournament or a 5v5 tournament, let them play, let them shoot at goal, let them defend, let them celebrate a goal. We forget that. I for sure do at times, and the guys will speak out. You'll get a message here and there from either your strength and conditioning coach, or a player will come up to you, or they share it with an assistant. Why didn't we play this week? Why didn't we do a 5v5 tournament? So culturally, I think us Americans, we're brought up with football and basketball and baseball, and everything's about running hard and hitting hard, and we've kind of added that to the culture in soccer. Somewhere else, if you went to Germany, the players are going to do what you ask them to do. Like, you run hard, you run. That's just how it is. You go to Spain or Italy, and it's tactics, and they're not so much, about playing 5v5. But in American culture, we've developed this from a young age. You got to play small-sided games to keep the player engaged, and you got to play small-sided games. So us as coaches and new coaches, a lot of the younger coaches are going through these courses, and they're trying to add more tactics and things like that. But you can't forget that it is also a game. And culturally, the American player, wants to play. They want to run. They want to sweat. So you got to give them that. And so I think that's a part that when you ask me how do you keep them motivated, you got to remember that it's not all about too much overwhelming them with tactics. That you got to try to find the right balance.
Yeah, it's all about balance.
That the tactics that make sense, which we always as coaches think they do, but maybe they don't. But you got to let them. You got to let them play. You got to let them play and remember what they fell in love with.
Do you have any specific exercises you've come up with that are like, these have no tactical use whatsoever? This is just to have fun. Like,
yeah, no, there's a lot. I think I've gotten away from so much just a possession and throwing the ball out, but every once in a while we'll do one that's just, don't worry so much about your position, just run and pass the ball, and we'll count how many you pass. I know I grew up on that, and you loved it. But that cross the pond game, I don't know if you've ever played it. It's 3 teams, and one team's in the middle. It's 3 grids. One team's in the middle grid, and they send 3 players out to one grid, and you play a 5v3. And if you connect X amount of passes, you knock it over to the other 5 over there. If the 3 win it and knock it out of the grid, the 5 that are trying to keep possession go to the middle grid, and they transition. That seems to be an international favorite from any team, any age it's ever been. You add some progressions and you add some different elements as the quality of player you have, but that seems to always be a winner with everyone. A good little 5v5, 6v6 small-sided game where there's a lot of shots, close proximity, to allow for a lot of combination play, quick play, seems to always be something that the players love. And anytime you can do some finishing exercises, that the game is score more goals than your opponent. So the players tend to love finishing exercises that get them repetition on goal.
You seem to always be wanting to improve your game. Where does that come from, and how are you able to keep focusing on getting better?
I think it goes back to what I said, how it was in Las Cruces, New Mexico, in our coaching. We couldn't every year go the easy way out of, I'm going to go and have tryouts and open it up for the town. And, like these big city clubs, you see signs. I'm here in Utah, and I see signs right now. This club has their sign-up call, this number, and tryouts this date, and there's all over. We couldn't do that. So we had to improve the player. And I was the same way as a player that when I was coached, we couldn't bring in a bunch of players. So I had to improve as a player. And my teammate had to improve as a player. We wanted to win state the next year against Albuquerque, New Mexico, that had 15 clubs there, clubs that paid. Those clubs that you hear all the stories, they pay $3,000, they travel here, they travel there. We weren't that. We didn't pay our coach. We didn't have warm-ups. So every year, one year we get fourth, we're ecstatic that we're fourth in the state. You know what? Next year we want to get third. What do we got to do? We got to go run this mountain that we call back home. It's called the A Mountain. It's a big mountain there. We run it, and we got to run it more this year, guys. And we got to it was those stories. It was the bad news bear stories, like the hardball stories. It was that. We just had someone that was caring for us, and it motivated us to get better. We couldn't go and get the great player from the other city to come with us. We had to become great players or good players and had cohesiveness in a team to go and beat these big clubs. And we eventually always did, to tell the truth. It might have taken a couple of years, but we did because we got better as individuals. And I think that's how it's been with me as a coach. Well, if I want to get better, I got to get better. I can't get stagnant. My staff has got to make me better. I got to make my staff better. I got to make my individual players better, because we're not going to go buy Carlos Vela. We're not. Real Salt Lake is not going to buy Carlos Vela. We have to make our own Carlos Vela from our academy. And the players that we have at the first team that we bring in got to right away help us. And I got to try to help them and how they can help the team get better. It's just been – I love that philosophy because that's how I grew up with that philosophy.
What do you do to help the team mesh better in terms of teamwork and that type of vibe?
Yeah. That's always a trick one. I think you mentioned you had Bruce Arena in one of your talks. And,
yep.
You have all these coaches, and what I've always admired about Bruce Arena, and I admire actually Almeida down in San Jose. Bruce Arena, any team he's had, they're a team. They compete. They're good. He makes every team better. And from my understanding, I've met with him once. He probably wouldn't remember him, but I back in 2005, MLS players were going to have a strike. National team players were going to have a strike, so they contacted lower division teams, and I went into a camp in Carson, California, and he was the coach. Him and Kurt Arnolfo and them, that was the staff. But you can just – the way he speaks, the way he carries himself quickly made you a believer in him. So, that stuff I admire. I admire in that, and I've always wanted to see how what is it that they do to convince the player. I hate using the word convincing. Like, you would think, well, they signed a contract, they're getting paid, you're the head coach, they're gonna listen. At least that's how my mentality was. That's the coach, I listen. And even when I played in USL, I played for 10 years. I had 8 coaches, and I played 7 coaches. So that means we weren't very good because coaches were in and out. But I played for every single coach as a starter because I did what the coach asked me. If he wanted me to hit a long ball, I played long ball. This coach came in, he wanted me to play with the ball on the ground, I did that. I did whatever the coach asked so I could play. And now all I hear is you got to convince the player, And I get a little bit of it, but it's like we forget that we're here to all get done, and it's almost like the head coach has lost that power of this is what we do and we're gonna do and this is how we're gonna, win or die from this. We're gonna follow this plan. So I've always admired what Bruce Arena. I'd like to see what he does. And in the same with Almeida at San Jose, how he got a team. He came in and got a team that was in the standings was at the best the year before, and he came in and changed their mentality totally, 100%, and how they run and press and the different style of soccer that MLS had not seen. I admire that from coaches, and I can't tell you if I have that. I want that. I want to have a cohesive team. That's what I work for every day. But for me, it's hard when you ask me what do you do to bring that. It's nothing. It's being respectful and honest and trying to teach them what I know. And sometimes I'm not the best rah guy. I can't stand in there and crack a joke and make 100 people laugh. That's I know for sure that's not a strength of mine. But I always hope that by work and that they believe that I have knowledge in the game that's going to help them. Then that's what's going to push them through. And that's yet to be seen because I just got started in this thing. But there's for sure some people like Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, Almeida, that whatever they do, they can basically like switching a switch to turn on the light. And they have it. They have that. I don't know if I have that. That's what I want to develop.
There you go. That's your next goal.
That's my next goal, yeah.
That brings us into goal setting. How do you do goal setting?
Yeah, there's realistic stuff. I'm not huge on, okay, guys, we're going to 100 shutouts and, we're going to get a shutout 30 times this year and we're going to score 60 goals that way. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I like it to be collaborative. I know we are the underdogs most of the time. We are what people say are the small market team. We aren't the big spenders. So, I use a lot of the guys, we got to be better at this. We got to be better at that. We got to know our system better. We got to be hungry. And you almost use a David Goliath kind of mentality with the guys, and then you speak to your guys and you ask them, what are some goals that you guys like to achieve? And you let them have a lot of influence in that. Because I think they become a little bit more accountable when it comes from them. Can't be just me setting stuff. There's some stuff that for me are non-negotiable and stuff and things, but a lot of it, there's a lot of give and take, and you got to allow them to have say so, and that's important. But yeah, that's a tough one for us. We want to compete for the MLS Cup like all the other 25 teams in the league, but how do we do it? We got to set some goals in that, and for me, it's first and foremost make the playoffs. You got to make the playoffs. Once you make the playoffs, okay, now we can start talking about the cup because then things change in that moment. So,
gotcha. You got to put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Or don't put the carriage before the horse, however that saying goes.
Yeah. It's a step at a time because it's sometimes you sign a player like Bella and okay, right away this player right gets us in the playoffs. And I'm not just saying that because they have a great coach and they have a great team and they play some very good. But I'm saying sometimes a player like that is going to bring you 20 goals, and having a 20 goal scorer in MLS almost guarantees you making the playoffs. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, the math is there.
Yeah, but for us, we don't have that, so we got to set different goals and do different things to try to achieve success or have any sort of success.
What about confidence? How did you become more confident as a player? What helped you build your confidence?
Yeah, 100% teammates that allowed me to speak my mind, that didn't put me down, didn't scare me. It wasn't that they weren't hard on me, but it was never demoralizing. I had played with some good players that were very intense and forced me to train and weren't afraid to tell me that was a poor training session. You're 19 years old, you should be doing more. That type of stuff quickly triggered things in my head, but it wasn't like F word, Freddy, you're a F in this and F in that, where I hide in a shell, right? It was holding me accountable. It was tough and, hey, you got to be better, but it wasn't degrading me. So that it was more like challenging. They challenge you. And I think that's what attributed to it, because many times I think you see situations, and in our world, we almost people that played for a long time. A lot of times, a young one comes in and they feel right away they got to be hard and they got to be super hard, and they don't find that balance. I do know you got to hold a young player accountable. I do know that if you have experience, a veteran has more experience, but you gotta, if that young player is gonna grow, hold them accountable, be tough on them, don't demoralize them. You gotta allow them to grow, and that's kind of what happened with me as a 19-year-old playing my first professional game. It was no one bashed me, no one, never. It was I felt like I was in an environment where I could be your own character. You didn't have to be someone else.
You could make mistakes.
You could make mistakes. And it wasn't that people say you can make mistakes, Freddy, but you didn't get crushed if you made a mistake. Right? No one ever said you can make mistakes here, but when you did one, they're just like, "Hey, it's got to be better." Now that's the culture here. Okay. And for me, maybe for someone else, it wouldn't have worked that way. Maybe they need you more. I don't know, but for me, that's how it worked, and that's how I try to be with our players. Right? And there would be many people that don't agree with me. They'd say you have to be harder with them because maybe they were brought up that way and they succeeded that way. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong, but that's how I kind of see it.
Yeah. You spoke about veterans. Let's talk about leadership. How do you help leaders develop within your own club, within your own squad?
Yeah, we have obviously inherited leaders that have been leaders of the club and very good leaders. So you love that. They've gone through experience. They've won championships. You gain a good relationship with them, and you let them continue to grow. But I also feel the younger players need to continue to develop. And there's things that, for example, we do these Zoom meetings and we do a tactical principle analysis video every Thursday that we deliver to the guys, and we go over. It's 30, 40 minutes of what that principle means in our style of play. But I've taken it now to where some of the younger guys in the team, we've done this twice now. We didn't have time this past week. We'll probably do next week or the week after, where I asked one of the players to deliver that same presentation to our academy group. And so for me, that's already showing development and growth and leadership, to be able to deliver a tactical analysis and be aware and explain it now as a teacher at 19, at 20, 22 years old is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a very big deal. For me, I didn't get comfortable with, and I'm still not comfortable with it, but where I could speak like this or speak to stuff till I was like 27, where I was really comfortable where I can speak in front of 50 people or 100 people, That's always nerve-wracking for whatever, but I didn't have to do any of it growing up. And so this helps. Number one, it helps the player with that leadership, understanding what I've been teaching them. Now I know they weren't just hearing, because now they're explaining the same thing I was teaching. Now they're explaining it to other people. So it's a lot of learning for them, but I thought it would be a good exercise. And the two players that did that they did it very well. And I got good feedback from the academy coaches and their players. So that's something that I'd like to continue to do. And I think that helps.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. They say the biggest fear ever is public speaking. The number one biggest fear.
It is for me.
So, all right, my last question for you. If you could go back in time and give your 20-year-old self some advice to help you in your soccer career, what would it be?
I would have been more of a vocal leader. I was always about being quiet and just actions. And, and people were always like, you're the type that when you speak, people listen. And so, maybe that was a good thing, but maybe not a good thing, because it almost put me in a thing like, well, don't talk too often, because then, you speak too often and people start ignoring, so. But I was made captain by Amos McGee down in Minnesota for 2 years, and and I wasn't vocal enough. I didn't do enough to keep a team together. And 100%, if I went back to my playing days and my younger age groups, I would have been more vocal. And especially when I just told you, I felt like I had a lot of people who helped in my development by not demoralizing me and pushing me So that should have already set the standards. Well, you know, if they're doing that, that means you can express yourself vocally too. And I wasn't. I was more of a, I'm going to go work hard. I'm going to run. I'm going to do everything with action. And just never really, I didn't really invest in the emotional part with it and expressing that with the players to what good, great teams do, you know, to hold them together in a season and all that. So yeah. I hope that now as a coach that I do more of that. And I continue to do more.
I hope you do too. Well, this is a good place to wrap up. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to watching you guys this season and see how it all plays out.
Awesome. Appreciate the call and the invite. Hopefully there was some info that might help someone out there.
I think there was a lot of good stuff.
And thank you. Thanks for the work you do and continue to get soccer out there and helping in any way. It's important for us. But appreciate it. Hopefully everything's good with you and back home.
Thank you.